is tell you for a bit from really start from the start, really. Telling you a bit about what is community tech, and then a bit about the Discovery Fund. So this workshop is really about as an aid to help prep people who might be interested in the Discovery Fund to understand, start to come up with some, helping people to come up with the ideas and challenges they might want to apply with. So let me start with what is community tech. So at Power to Change, we've come across many community businesses that are finding that the tech that's out there, so corporate technologies, are just not meeting their needs. Yeah, so they've been designed in a way that is for big business and about replication and scalability. So the idea is that, you know, you get a piece of tech, you do your business, and then what you'll do is you'll do the same thing multiple times. But what we know is that actually communities are managed in a totally different way. They don't scale in terms of doing the same thing lots and lots of times. What they do is they do lots of different things for their community. So the pieces of tech that are getting developed that you buy off the shelf, a lot of the time don't meet the exact needs. So we saw a case of lots of communities coming together and saying, telling us that they were actually developing their own piece of technology. And that's what we call community tech. So this is, let me change my slide here. So what we mean by community tech is, so it refers to any hardware or software. So when we say that, so that's like the physical computers, like physical things, or the software, the software that makes computers and technology works. So any hardware or software that delivers a benefit to a community group, and which that community group has the authority to influence and control. So if you unpick that slightly a bit, so when we talk about delivering a benefit, so this is that, you know, that the community group are seeing the value of that tech, and that tech is delivering value not only to the organization but to the community. But also when we're talking about authority to influence and control, that could just be the fact that you've created it, you own it, or there is some way that you can influence that piece of technology. Now, this is our Discovery Fund is our second funding round. The first one was called Makers and Maintainers, and here are the 10 organizations we supported. So this fund was slightly different because this was funding actual existing community businesses that were doing community tech already. And these are some examples, and I thought it'd be useful for me to pick a couple of these out just to sort of give you an idea of what some of the examples of what community tech is already in existence. So I'll pick here. So Signalize. So what they are, they're a cooperative based up in the Liverpool region, and they basically do translation for deaf people. So what they do is they are a cooperative between deaf people, the interpreters, and the service users. So between them all, they've created this co-op, which then has developed its own piece of technology which helps this all happen. So that's what they do. You've got Friends of Stretford Public Hall based up in Manchester, and they're another co-op. And what they do is they've got something called community shares, and community shares are a way of the community about investing in a community business. But what you need to do with the community share offer is that you need to manage all the different values of what people have. And what Friends of Stretford Public Hall have done is they've created a piece of software which helps to manage that for them, but also they've made it publicly open, so any other community business who has the same problem can pick that piece of technology up and do that for them. And then finally, let's see, let's go with the Bristol Cable. So the Bristol Cable is a sort of community-owned journalism organization based in Bristol, as the title says. And what they did is they created a piece of tech which helps to manage their relationship with their members. So it means that their members can take a sort of active role in the decisions that that organization makes, but also able to feed in stories, able to sort out their subscriptions, all these pieces. So it's like it's a membership management system that they've created. And again, that's being used by lots of other organizations. So these are just some of the examples of what could happen from an idea that you might have around community tech. So let me just spend a little bit of time talking about the Discovery Fund. So I've just shared before that, you know, we've done a funding round already with existing tech, and now we're realizing that there's a new ask and there's a new need from the sector, and that's from people who are interested in community tech or wanted to come in as a new entrant, and we've developed the Discovery Fund for that. So what it'll do is it'll provide the space, so that's time and the resources to support you to explore a challenge. So an idea you might have or a challenge that you're facing. So it's about bringing new people into the space, but also potentially allowing existing people, organizations who are doing community tech to actually explore new ideas. And we've purposely sort of built in an inclusive design. So we're encouraging applications that focus on supporting communities who are experiencing marginalization. So we realize that organizations that are working within those margins and with marginalized communities are coming up with sometimes the more innovative and really great ideas. So that's the space we want to really try and encourage. So in terms of the actual parameters around it, so it's we've got 20 grants and they're of £10,000 each, and this is flexible funding. So what this means is that you don't have to tell us how you're going to spend the money beforehand. You just need to sort of cover what question you need to answer, the questions around what is your challenge, what is the context, how you want to approach it, and then you get your £10,000 and you can spend that as you wish to actually do that piece of inquiry. So looking at that feasibility, you can spend on staff time, you can spend it on getting people in to help you, user research. Yeah, I'll come into a bit more about what you can spend the money on. But also there's an additional £2,000 which is there to really cover your time, so you can then participate and collaborate with others, join our community tech community of practice. So this is lots of other people in and around the community who are doing community tech. We're encouraging them to come together in this community of practice, and this money here will allow you sort of just to give you the headspace to be able to lean into it and go in and to engage with others. And then finally, we did realize that it's challenging to say to people, like, you've got an idea and then give you some money and then expect you to get it over in a 6-month period, get to the other side and say, oh yeah, oh look at this, I've got this great idea and I've developed it. So what we've done is we've realized that actually it's useful to have the opportunity to learn with others. So we've developed something called the Community Explore program, which is a step-by-step guide for the grantees to sort of learn the tools to do user-centered digital design. So it'll take you through all the different stages from initial idea right through to the stage where you understand you've got the sort of the nub, the plan about what you want to do next. So basically, this sort of just shows you a little bit about what that Community Explore program will look like. So it's split into two, sort of autumn, winter, between sort of October to December, we do phase 1. And then we have a break over Christmas to then come back in January to do phase 2. It's about the sort of definition phase. A lot more of this information is all on our website, so we can get to that. So just to sort of finish off, what can the funding be used for? So I said staff costs. So it could be about helping your volunteers. It could be getting contractors in. It could be helping to cover your time to engage with the Community Explore program. It could be user research. It could be getting some buying in some expert advice, and again sharing learning. And also, I mean, it could be for the little things. Say if you need a couple of tablets to be able to go and do the user research, you can cover it. That money can be spent for that. So we're not limiting it just to revenue. It can be you can buy bits of capital with it as well, but it's very much flexible. So that's the key. It's about helping you to go through that journey. I'll hand back over to Bobby, but just to say that I'll put a link in the chat to the web page, which has all this information in it, all the guidance. You've got lots more videos than me, which you're probably a bit sick of already, but I go through all this into more detail. But hopefully this has piqued your interest, and at the end of this session you're going to have some ideas that you're going to want to try and put through the community through Discovery. All right, thank you, Bobby.
Thanks, Fergus. So how do we go about that initial discovery phase? How do we start to create those ideas and really understand our challenge? That's what we're going to be focusing on today. And I've got 3 practical activities, which are one of many that you could use to start to explore the challenge that your community or your community business has. But first, I want to just highlight that kind of starting point to any discovery process. And it starts with questions. There's more questions that are on this slide, but these are like the key questions. So we're wanting to kind of really understand that challenge. What is it? Can we name it? Can we really describe it? Are we able to kind of feel it and visualize what that challenge is? And also, is it a challenge that really needs solving? So when we ask that question, we're looking, have others started to explore whether this can be solved? Is there another solution to this challenge that we could adopt and adapt? And how could we approach solving this challenge? Which ideas should we be taking forward? And how will we know which is the best idea? And that is the kind of core points to any discovery process. It's really a point of curiosity, and a moment to kind of play. We're not at a point where we want to have any answers yet. We don't want to approach it with a solution. We don't want to be there and say, we are going to create this piece because. We may know that, but we want to secure our understanding of the challenge. So in order to approach these questions, because it's quite a different way of working, quite often we need to give ourselves permission to be curious. And in order to do that, there are some ways that we can do that. Some people find it quite natural. I now find it quite natural to kind of find that position of curiosity, but that's because I've been doing this for a while. So it may be that you and your team want to kind of explore how you could do this, and how you might work together to make sure that you're kind of doing it in a safe way. So I've just shared a link to what's called a Padlet, which is one of the tools that I like to use for this kind of work. It's quite accessible, but for those of you who are on your phones, you may find it difficult to use. There is a Word document version of this that I'll share later for you to kind of work through it with your team. But if you are able and are on a computer, I'd like to invite you to click on that link that I've just shared in the chat and join me in this discovery agreement space. So what we're doing is we're looking at, while we explore and find ideas to our challenge, we agree that, for example, ideas from everyone are valid and it doesn't matter where they come from. If you want to add any other suggestions, you can do that by just adding that. There's a little plus button next to the top statement, and that opens up a post for you to write in. So I'd like to invite you to add any thoughts around kind of behaviours that you might want to adopt through this exploration point.
Just to say, if anyone's having any problems, then please accessing anything, please feel free to get in contact with me over chat. I'll see what I can do to help.
There we go. Here's some ideas coming in. Yeah, these are all great, and they just kind of allow you to find that place of safety, psychological safety, which when we're taking on something new is so important. It also tries to bring us out of that traditional workplace environment. And I know that many in a community business don't always work in that way, but quite a lot of us have always had those experiences. So it's quite a good way to kind of just rip us from that hierarchy, and make sure that we're all happy and have agreed as a collective to work in the same way. And these ideas cover also each and every one of us will, so a promise of the way that you will work together. So that can include respecting each other's ideas. It can also include trying to have fun, which is a great one. Letting go of normal constraints as well, and also jumping full in. Sometimes when we start these projects, people are a little bit wary of how involved they want to be. So you could, as a group, decide that you're going to go all in on this exploration and devote. It could be that each and every one of you is going to devote a day a week, or however much time you want to agree to this. It could just be an hour a week as well, dependent on what your availability is. We'll agree to a focus on an idea when. So here it's like when we come to a group decision, when we all agree that that is an idea that might work, when we all know what success of that idea might look like. So how do we know when an idea is a good idea for this project and this challenge and for us to explore? And that will then allow you later down the line to kind of support that decision-making process. You know, you may have 10 ideas that you've come up with as a group, but you will need to narrow that down at some point. So taking this activity and doing this will really help you in that process, because you can reflect back on it. And yeah, it's important in this moment to commit to the mission and explore all options. Does anyone kind of want to challenge this as an idea, or want to reflect on that as an idea? Is there anyone that wants to say anything? If not, I can move back to the slides, or you can just add it in the chat. It's fine. So there is a Word document which is less fun, but you can also go to this little retweet icon on Padlet and just remake it, and then you can remake it with the posts and the comments, and then you can just remove them for your use. So that's one way of kind of just starting it and setting that kind of the baseline of how we're going to be, and make sure that everyone knows that it's a place for fun and curiosity. Another challenge that many people come across, especially when they come from the kind of voluntary third sector, we don't have a lot of money, we don't have a lot of time, we never have enough skills or capacity in the team, and quite often that can reduce or inhibit the ideas that we come across. So another really good exercise to kind of pull you out of that mindset of the day-to-day is to kind of flip the switch on those activities, and start to think about, if money wasn't a constraint, what would you be doing, and how might you look to explore this challenge? So I'm going to share the next link with you all. And I really encourage you to do this with your team as well. So we start off with the 4 questions. As with the last board, I invite you to use the little plus button next to the if money wasn't a concern, we would, etc. And then just add in the way that you would, but what would you do to change the world more quickly? What would that challenge that you're solving be? The aim of this is to try and create something that's really a vision that's tangible and that excites you as a group and a team to really move forward. It's kind of a starting point. Most of you will probably have heard of a theory of change. It's been quite a thing for us all to do across the sector for a while. This is one activity that can really help you before you get to that point of developing that kind of theory of change overall objective. You know, changing the world is a massive point, but changing the world through, I mean, the one at Be More Digital would be through improving the digital skills of those that do good. That is our overarching aim. So if we had all the money in the world, what could we do with that, and what would we do with that? Why would you reach more people? Some great things coming out here. What would you want a community assistant AI for? Work out how to create tools we need ourselves, yeah. Well, hopefully this fund will get you there. Can you kind of see how this would be helpful as an exercise at the start of kind of a project to be more curious? If we're trying to really flip that switch in the way that we're thinking and our approach to things, it could be that you have specific organizational things that you want to address in this activity as well. So it may be that you want to use this activity to really challenge the way that people bring ideas forward. Perhaps they're not encouraged enough to do that. So you want to kind of, if we weren't worried about what people thought of us, we would. Could be a suggestion as well. Does anyone have any other suggestions about how others we could statements that might help them flip the switch for their organisation? No? Okay. So once we've kind of given ourselves that permission and to be curious, and given ourselves permission to kind of flip that switch and pull ourselves out of that third sector box, we need to start to approach the challenges that we think we know everything about. And just a note here to say that you never really will know everything, because there'll always be someone who you're not talking to or you're not engaged with that experiences that challenge in a slightly different way. So we always want to make sure that we have some type of humility and curiosity to our challenges. We are all experts in the support that we deliver, but there is always going to be someone who is expert in the way that they experience that challenge. So to do that, what we do is we are one way is to create a knowledge board, and this is quite a good activity to really kind of pull out our challenges and what we know about them and what we think we know about them and what we need to know more about. And this is a great starting point for you to start to work out what types of exploration you might be wanting to do as part of your discovery. So in the first column, I invite you to just start to kind of create a problem statement or kind of a sentence around your challenge. So what is the challenge that your community business and your community would like to solve? This may get quite messy. So when we're building out a problem statement, what we want to be thinking about is the what, so what. So just to think about the first, joining up offers of micro volunteering with need, so that we can do what would be the end result of resolving that challenge? Is it so that we can be more efficient in supporting our community? Is it so that our volunteer manager isn't overwhelmed and struggling? What's the so what? And the reason that we build that so what is, again, so that we have that ambition and that empathy, and that when we're sharing this with other people, bringing new people on board, they understand the why. It's not just the challenge. The problem statement is why is it important to solve it? What does this solving it look like? Not the solution, but how might solving it be supportive to that problem and that challenge? So here's one that starts to do that with the matchmaking and managing sites of wildflower meadows to create more spaces to help nature and climate. So we all know that climate's an issue. We all know that pollination is an issue, and that we need to be encouraging more diversity in nature. So that's a starting point for us. Increasing community fundraising to maximise the support we are able to give to reduce the impact of poverty and homelessness in Greater Manchester. And that's a really big challenge, but you know what the why is. Why might you want to involve more people in the governance of your organisation? What's your why for that? There are many reasons why that would be a good thing, but what is the specific why in your organisation, so that they can be closer to decisions? That's brilliant. Encourage volunteers who are unemployed. How to? So your challenges is a big question. How might we encourage volunteers who are unemployed so that they can have the first step towards possible help for employment? There are a number of challenges that will be within that as well, that you might want to kind of explore across the board as we move forward to that. Engaging community plant nursery volunteers who are home-based, so they feel part of the volunteering community and supported. Yeah. Great. So I think we've all got our problem statements, or at least they're on their way. So we all know kind of why we're doing that. So then we need to kind of look at the information that we already know, and that could be something that kind of is significant to the challenge. So we don't have many sites. So that's a significant challenge that we need to start approaching and addressing as part of this work. But we equally know the importance of wildflower sites for people, nature, and climate. So how could we maybe use that information as part of a positive to shift and make that change? And we also want to show that sites are fragmented or under threat. So closer to that, how do we know that the sites are fragmented and under threat? Is there already a map or a data set that shows that? Or is that something that we need to know more about? So at this point, we can take the information that we know, and I'd encourage you, as you do this with your community groups and with volunteers and start the co-design process, each of those points should be its own post or post-it note if you're doing it in person. So you would have the importance of wildflower sites and people in nature would be one. And then the next one would be, we don't have many sites left. And then another one would be, sites are fragmented. And then from there, we can kind of connect the dots around what we know and what we need, what we think we know. And what we think we know are things that we're like, we haven't got specific evidence of. So we haven't got quantitative or qualitative data to prove that this is something we know, but it's something that we kind of assume and we want to probably explore a little more. So you know that your community is isolated as they only access support when they're in crisis. Do you 100% know that the reason that your community is only accessing support when in crisis is because they're isolated, or because there might be another reason? So that would be something I would put in the what we think we know, unless you can substantiate that with feedback or kind of evidence from your community. Yeah, there can be costs that would be a barrier to accessing healthcare. We know that. So when I was referring to do you know about the crisis, this post here where it says LGBTQ plus service users are telling us, you might adjust your statement here on the RSCD community can. It could be are telling us, so that you've got some kind of way to say, we know this because we've listened, we've heard, this is our proof. Okay. We need funding to upscale services to support the community. And what type of support would you be doing in your community? Why? What do you know is missing in that support? I'm just having a quick look in the chat. See if there's any questions. I see that there's already some idea generation happening in the what we know section as well. So when we move on to the what we think we know, let's move to the cost as a barrier to the perceived cost of travel as a barrier to healthcare. We think we know that cash support and grants can be used as a way to support and to solve this problem. We think we know that creating free access to taxis for hospital visits will reduce this and will reduce that barrier to healthcare. What other think you knows could be connected to what you do know? And this is where you can start to kind of build out a few ideas that you might want to explore, and things that you might want to kind of test and start to prove. Oh, this one on the what we know, I really want to bring up as well. People don't want extra responsibility of a board role, and they know it's hard to leave and can be busy on an evening. What gives you that information? And is that a challenge that you're looking to solve for your community business right now?
I feel bad, Bobby. It was me who put that one.
Was it?
Yeah, and I have got a community working on. Yeah, and the answer is yeah, but I'm now thinking that I should have put them under what we think we know rather than what we know. So sorry.
Yeah. No, don't.
I'm learning. I'm learning.
No silly comments, questions, anything. I'm just intrigued by that, and it's not kind of, when I am highlighting these, it's not to challenge them, it's just to query them. I'm coming at them with that state of curiosity, and that's what we should all be doing when we do this as a team within our community businesses. It's about, all of us have our own thoughts and ideas, and we're all individuals. So it's about how can we put down what we know, and then others approach those statements with curiosity, because they may not think that it belongs there or believe that. So Fergus, if you want to move that across, you can just pick it up and move it over there. So low digital skills evidenced by demand for help from elder members. Okay, so people in your community who are of an older age are requesting that help. Great. Is there also low digital access? Do they have the equipment and access to that equipment as well? Is that something else that might be a challenge for those older users to get on board with? I just want to confirm that SCD is sickle cell. Is that right? Or is that assumption that I'm just making? Please just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Okay, so you're exploring the CRM question, which is a big question, that kind of is about making sure that you've got caseload and donor in one. Now that's a thing to definitely explore. Thank you for making sure that I knew what I was doing. Just one note on CRMs, out of the box, never the best thing. There's always a slight adjustment that you need to make, and there's lots of people that can kind of help you explore that, that are really good at doing that too. Generally, businesses know that wildflower meadows are important sites. Bigger, better sites are the answer. That would be quite interesting to explore. Are bigger sites the answer, or are multiple small sites planned in a way that they can kind of be connected also a good option? We know some information about groups and services. Okay, well, what more information might you want to know from those groups about and services to kind of support that casework and support your challenge? And then on the last point, Fergus, you have a question about, can this funding be used to create a unique CRM?
So to answer that question, the funding's there to explore why you might need a CRM and what sort of CRM you might then go and develop, but the funding isn't to actually cover the cost of the CRM, if that makes sense. It's the feasibility. So it's working out what you need and what sort of and where you might source it. So what is it, the fact you might develop it yourself? Is there something in the commons that you can use that you can tweak yourself, or is it something that you might have to ask someone else to work on? But yeah, so it's unfortunately it's not the implementation, it's all a bit up to there.
And just a note on that, I've been involved in putting in a number of CRMs for various charities, and the longer you can take to really understand the data and what you're trying to do with that data and the problems that you have between that caseload and donors and connecting and all of that kind of stuff, the better your project will be and the better the solution will be in the long run. But I would also, as part of that project, invite you to look at whether you need a bespoke system, or if there is options of kind of licensed systems, so and adjusting them, or has someone else already solved this problem, and spending a good period of time doing that is always really valuable. So when we move over to what we need to know more about, this is the stuff that we're like, no clue. And this is the most difficult one. So this is the one where you're like, well, I don't know what I don't know, right? So it might be you spend the most time on this and exploring this. So what is it about your board problem that you don't know? I'm just trying to find that one. Where is it? You moved it, Fergus. It's gone. But so if you kind of if you think you know that people are less likely to join a board because they don't have the time or they don't know, what do you need to know more about? Do you need to know, you might want to know more about why they think that. You might need to know about kind of the general community's perception of your community business and organisation. What other things would you need to know more about in order to kind of confirm that your assumption in the what we think we know column is true or false? But also, is there a reflection that you can do from the what we know column? You know, it might be that just pulling out the searching out funding can be quite challenging. We know that, but what we need to know is what is the difference between a successful grant application and a less successful grant application? What is the difference between our community business and a community business that's successful in that grant? And then we need to work out how we might find that information out. Yes, that is a big job. Who is providing what? At least you got it centered in Birmingham and not across the UK or the world, because that would be a bigger problem and a big job. And so as you start to kind of build these out, you can see why having a pot of money to support you on this discovery journey is going to be really helpful. and supportive. Many other grant applications, especially for digital tools and challenges, ask you to have already done this work. So this is giving you that kind of startup fund almost to your challenge. And to this one, do you know what a good site for wildflowers it is, or do you need to know more about that? And all of those things should be added into this, and you should refer back to them as kind of questions to include on your project as you continue. There is obviously a link in the slides that I'll share with Fergus that means you can go back and use this remake button and do it with your team, or your volunteers and your board. Bring in as many people as you possibly can to do this work. But once we've got all of these ideas, how do we pull it into some sort of project that doesn't send us mad with documents and post-it notes and things everywhere? Just going to quickly look at the chat. Okay, so you're going to need to have something in place to cover the 4 key areas of any project, and that would be kind of generating and saving ideas, measuring and monitoring success, communicating what you've been doing, and planning the work to come. Keep it simple. There's nothing worse than starting a project that might be quite a new way of working and a different way of working for your organisation, and then also trying to get them to use different tools and new tools. So if you as an organisation aren't used to doing digital mind mapping or digital ideas generation, do it with a pen and paper and post-it notes. So I am quite a reductionist, I suppose, on tools for ideas generation, because I really want to make sure that it's as accessible as possible and as inclusive as possible to as many people. And that's especially important if your kind of target group and your community is one of those that is mostly and mainly excluded from digital skills and digital equipment. You know, 2 main groups would be the elderly and the young. Quite often young people have access to only a smartphone or only a tablet, and maybe access to a computer at school or in the library. Many elderly people won't even want internet connection in their home. So we need to just be aware of how we're going about generating ideas, especially when we're doing that with our community. And we don't need to be whizzy or fancy about it. The way that the questions that we're asking and the curiosity and the way that we're asking those questions is more important than the tools that we're using to do that. If you just type into Google discovery workshop activities, there is 50 million that could help. If you have a specific kind of challenge in generating ideas, be a bit more specific in your Google search and there'll be more options that are very good and targeted for you. I've just run you through 3, but there's so many more that can really help you. Another thing that I do, because I'm neurodiverse, is if you're doing them online, record that call. But if you're doing them in person, try and kind of have a phone to record the session. At least recording the audio of the session can really help when you're coming back to reflect on learnings. But obviously with that, make sure everyone knows. You don't want to be doing any secret recordings. old school sticky dots and post-it notes, Sharpies, they work really well. But remember when you're using them to really document it well, because the worst thing that you want and the last thing you want is a load of photos of brilliantly colourful post-it notes that you can't read, and you can't understand and you can't decipher. Whimsical, I've added there. That's it's a free to use tool, and it does quite a lot of mapping. So it's really good if you've got process mapping, and it also does some mind mapping as well that you can kind of use as a generation tool for ideas. With measuring success, I have kept it really, really simple. A Google Sheet or an Excel document is perfect, but the key to that is you need to have a clear vision of what success looks like. One way might be a theory of change. Another way might be looking at objectives and key results. So kind of going deeper into that, what are the key results that show you that you're on the way to achieving that main objective? You may want to pair it up. There may also be, you'll want to kind of make sure that you've got quantitative and qualitative ways of showing what success might look like. And at that point, when you've gone to the knowledge board, so what do we need to know more about? It could be then that you, as a group, say, we will know enough about this when. And it's not, as I said earlier, it's not about knowing everything, because we won't ever get to that point. Perfection is not a point that we're looking to get to. We're getting to a point where we know enough to move forward. And we may want to come back at a later date to explore that a bit more once we've made significant progress. But it's about measuring success to keep things moving. Does anyone have any questions on that or experiences? I know it's quite a big thing in a tiny slide. I just want to make sure that we've got a moment for anyone to add anything there. Okay. So when we're communicating progress, we don't want to always do written, because not everyone, me included, is very good at reading things. My attention span on an email is this, but put me in front of a video and I'll probably, if I don't watch it all, I've been listening to it all. So there's a tool called Loom, which is free to use, up to about 5 recordings. It gives you the opportunity to record 5 minutes, and that will give you just enough to start to kind of share what you've been doing and where you've got to. So I was doing some work for a community business up in Wolverhampton recently, and they had a challenge of selling things online. They didn't have the budget to go full out with a kind of website. So we explored ways that forms and connecting that form to a payment mechanism might help them. So to show them, I did a short Loom recording of, this is your form, this is how it works, and this is the result, and this is how you manage it behind the scenes and how you manage it in front, and like how your customers will see it. Another way could be week notes and blogging, but again, you don't need to do that in a written form. If it's easier for you to record a week notes or to draw it out, that might be the best approach. One other thing that I like to do is have one single running document for all of your meetings, and kind of agree the types of things that you'll always cover and leave space for other things to come forward. But if you have one meeting log, that means that everything's in the same place, everyone knows where to go, everyone can look at what the actions were from last time and move forward. It just keeps everything in one place and keeps it more simple. And also show and tell. It doesn't have to be a digital thing. that you show. It could be something that you've built on paper. It could be a series of drawings, a series of kind of images. It could be just something to help show that direction of thought process. So when we're planning the work, Fergus earlier showed kind of a phased board for the support by cast and what you would be doing every week. You can also build that in for your project and what you'll be looking at. So it could be that the first phase of discovery is really kind of ironing out that problem and defining what that challenge is for you, defining what good looks like, so what a response to that challenge might be in terms of a feeling, not a solution, and then after that it would be, well, what one idea are we going to take forward, what 3 ideas are we going to take forward, and how will we know that that's been completed? Quite often we're going to need to prioritize, so there's a number of different ways that we can do that. I like to matrix, so put a board on like a cross and just dot things, the really difficult things putting a bit further back, because there might be things that we can do to help us answer them earlier on, but it could be that we want to kind of really start with the challenging question and that big question, especially if we've got the support behind us to do that. And you can log all of these plans in an Excel sheet or a Google sheet. It doesn't need to be a fancy project management tool. It could also be, if you're all in the same space and all in a physical location all the time, you could put it on a whiteboard and move it and review it as you go. So I'm going to open up the kind of questions and reflections for the last part. Does anyone have any reflections or questions that they would like to share?
I'm also happy to take any questions around the Discovery Fund.
I know there's a lot to take in, Maria, which is why all of the templates are there for you to use afterwards, and also to kind of digest through watching the recording afterwards as well. I think it's always good to take that time to reflect, and not try and do everything all at once. I
got a question here from Grace. I wish your name was Grace Wildflower, but I presume that's where you're working. But is it better to focus on one key challenge? Yes. So you choose the challenge, and can I just remind you, so just forget about the tech piece. It's about the challenge. So what is your challenge? Okay. And then there's 5 questions. So the first is, what is the challenge? Then the second is, what is the context of the challenge? Like, so, the challenges we want to, there's lots there. So we want to be able to get the community to engage with us around planting wildflowers, and then the wider context about, like, reason why you want to do wildflowers, where are you doing it? Then the third question is around, like, how are you going to approach it? Like, who do you want to work with? Is it going to be doing it in collaboration? Are you going to be doing it? Who's going to be the leads? Those sort of questions. The fourth question is simply, why the community tech? Why taking a community tech perspective, right? So why sort of doing it within the commons, like why working openly, why working collaboratively, why owning the solution is important to you. And then finally, the last question regards it's basically how are you working with marginalized communities. So it's about, really, as a scoring question, it just means it ensures that we're trying to get a really diverse portfolio cohort on the other end. So 5, that's all. They're the 5 scoring questions. So yeah, so we aren't asking for like lots of detail. What we are interested in is about how your challenge, and about how you then plan to look at addressing that challenge.
There's a follow-up kind of question from Sam, which is, as a fund is to enable exploration, how will the ideas or the quality of the ideas and initial plans be assessed?
So my advice would be go to the website which you put in there earlier. So it's on the the Power to Change webpage. We'll put it back in again. There's guidance in there. We actually set out the template. So each question scored 0 to 5, and it'd be scored by 2 people. So so there's 5 questions scored twice. So there's a maximum of 50 points. But that sets out quite clearly about the sort of scale of why someone would get a 5 and why someone would get a 0. So 0, you're not really giving any answer at all. And then like 5, you just made a really good case about why about what is important about that challenge, like why you've really thought through the challenge. But my advice would be to look at that. And I mean, I've helped design it, so and we have user tested it. So I do feel it gives people a good opportunity to really think about what their question is they want to explore. So, and just another piece in there. So you could have an existing, so it doesn't have to be new. It's not, we're talking about innovation here, but it could be a new challenge, but it might be it's maybe a new, it's new to you. You might have an existing challenge you've been trying to work on for ages, but and you might have had different attempts at doing it, but this is another chance to have taken a chance of doing that. So it doesn't have to be a totally new thing to your organization, to you. It might be the fact that this is a perpetual challenge that we keep on coming up against, and this is an opportunity to try and look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah, and on that, I'll just kind of add a example that I was kind of shared and became aware of last week at a Tech for Good conference. And the challenge of the organisation or the challenge of the community was how to ensure that people who needed crisis access to funds, so people who may be victims or survivors of domestic abuse who need to escape that situation, how can they access cash to be able to find a place to stay that night? Or how can a new arrival refugee access funds to buy food and replacement clothing following their journey? So that was their challenge. They spent a really long time kind of exploring that. And then they also spent a lot of time exploring how this challenge had been solutionized by others. And when I say by others, I mean in other countries. So they then found a solution that was being used in America, where there was a piece of technology which involved coding ATM machines and a text message. So the person receiving this cash gets sent a text message by the person giving them the cash, and it could be a charity or a local authority, and then they can go to a cash machine and type a button that says access without a card, and then they can type in the code that they're given in the text message and the mobile number that's associated with, and retrieves that cash. So it doesn't need to be a new idea, a new challenge, or even a new way of doing it, but the way you put it all together has to be owned by you. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any more questions, reflections?
Just to say that everyone should, if you do, you kind of mute yourself. So it's not like a webinar where you're all muted and you can't. But if you do want to, I know it's easy to sometimes type into the chat. But yeah, please feel free to ask.
I just want to say that across the 2 sessions, I feel like I've got a really good grip on what you want and what you're looking for and what might fit, might not fit. So thank you for that. It's not always that funders do that. So it's nice to sort of be going into it with a clear idea of what you want to see and what your expectations are. Whether we put an application in that meets that is anybody's guess, but thank you for all that information, and you know, just clarifying things, because it makes it a lot easier going into the process.
Lynn, that's really great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. But also to say, the fact that you've spent the time like coming to the different sessions and taking all that in will mean that you will have a better, you will be able to build a better application. So thank you for investing the time as well. And you know, it's a synergy here. What I definitely don't want is people like investing time into an application where it's either not going to meet their need or they're not eligible. So this is hence why we really want to spend as much time as possible like socializing, talking about this, so that you do feel as if you're in a better position to go ahead. But no, thanks for that, Lynn.
I've also put together a list of kind of support templates and kind of further reading that might help you with some of the things that we've put in place. I've just realized here I haven't linked the discovery agreement template and all of those, but I will do that before I share with Fergus to send on to you. But we also have a problem definition toolkit that has been created by Nesta, which I find really useful, and kind of takes you through how to define that problem and how to really kind of form that, as well as a theory of change toolkit, just in case you've never done one before. And then there's 3 different blogs about digital discovery, digital projects that will start kind of giving you a bit more of a kind of understanding of the terms that may be bounded around, to kind of help you feel less overwhelmed by that as well. So they will be there for you as soon as I can get them across to Fergus.
Yeah, I mean, what we'll do is we'll make sure that we follow up with all the links, all the stuff. I don't know, Bob, you sharing your slides? Yeah.
Yeah, I am sharing my slides. Yeah.
I mean, we can. Well, we'll send a follow-up package basically where there might be a link to the recording, and then there's potentially, we'll definitely have the different Padlet links and all that stuff there. So
yeah, I tend to save it as a PDF.
Yeah,
and then it'll have links in the PDF, so you can open up all of the Padlets and the toolkits that are added as well.
Perfect. We are a little bit ahead of time, but unless there's any more questions, and we've all got another sort of 15 minutes in our day, but before I cut off, I really want to just give anyone another chance just to put a hand up, put something in the chat, because now it's time. But you can always follow up on communitytech@powertochange.org.uk, and we'll answer your questions from there as well. Okay, seems lots of thank yous. So I just want to say thank you all for spending the time, taking the time out of your day to join us. I've really enjoyed this. Bobi, thank you for creating the slides and taking people through that journey. I think is really interesting. I've learned a lot, so thank you for that. And good luck everyone who's going to put an application to Discovery. And see you on the other side. So thanks everyone. Have a lovely rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.